I always thought respect was something you earned with years of love, sacrifice, and quiet endurance. But that afternoon, when my daughter-in-law looked me dead in the eyes and snapped, "From now on, you cook and clean. Stop eating for free," I felt something inside me shift. My son's laugh cut even deeper. "Mom, that's all you're good for." His words didn't sting, they burned, but I didn't let them see the tremor in my hands. I didn't let them see the way my chest tightened. Instead, I smiled gently, like their cruelty meant nothing. "Of course," I said softly, turning away before they could notice the storm forming behind my eyes. If they had looked closely, they would have seen it. The way my fingers curled a little too tightly around the counter. The way my breathing steadied like a woman preparing for war. But they didn't look. They never had. To them, I was background noise, a convenient pair of hands, a shadow in their house, but they forgot one thing. Shadows see everything. When they left for work that morning, I stood alone in the silent house. For years, I had held this place together. I cooked every meal, washed every plate, folded every sheet, raised their children when they were too tired or too busy to notice life slipping by. I took their insults, their backhanded comments, their dismissive glances, but never once had I imagined they would openly declare me a servant. Something inside me cracked, not from weakness, from awakening. I walked toward my room, slow, steady, purposeful. The sunlight fell across the floor in long, warm stripes, but none of that softness reached me. I opened my closet and stared at the few things I truly owned. My clothes, my photos, my memories, everything else. I had given to them freely, time, love, years, but not anymore. I pulled out my old suitcase, the one I used the day I moved into their home because they said, "Mom, come live with us. We'll take care of you. You'll never be alone." Empty promises, a trap wrapped in affection, as I placed each item inside the suitcase. My scarf, my wedding ring, the little silver watch my late husband gave me. I felt a strange calm settle over me, not sadness. Not fear, a chilling kind of clarity. The clarity that comes to a person who has finally decided, this ends now. I gathered every photo I cherished, my babies when they were still innocent, my son before life and his wife, turned him into someone I barely recognized. Their children on the day they were born, when I held them and whispered silently, "I'll protect you always." Then I did something I never imagined I would do. I walked to the dining table, sat down, and wrote a letter. My handwriting was slow, deliberate, controlled. The words, sharp enough to cut bone, not emotional, not dramatic, just the cold truth they had earned. With every sentence, I felt the weight on my chest lighten. When I finished, I placed the letter in the center of the table. But I didn't stop there, no. They had unleashed something they weren't prepared for. I placed something else beside the letter, something they never expected, something that would freeze them in place the moment they walked through the door. And as the sun set outside and the house grew darker, quieter, emptier, I zipped up my suitcase and took one last look around the home I had kept alive for so many years. By the time their car rolled into the driveway that night, the house no longer felt like theirs. The warmth was gone, the familiar rhythm of my presence, the cooking, the humming, the footsteps, silenced. They walked in laughing, arguing about something trivial. Then they stopped, dead in their tracks. The air changed, their faces drained of color, because the moment they looked at that table, the moment they saw what I had left behind, their arrogance shattered. The moment their keys jingled in the lock, I felt the final thread between us snap. I wasn't there to witness their faces when they entered the house, but I could imagine it with chilling accuracy. The way my daughter-in-law's smirk would fade first, followed by my son's confused frown. For years, I had anticipated their arrival every evening, preparing dinner, warming the house, smoothing over every tension. But tonight, the house greeted them with nothing but stillness, a stillness so unfamiliar, so unnatural, that it must have crawled up their spines like ice water. I stood outside on the walkway, just close enough to hear the moment their world tilted. My suitcase sat beside me, the street lamp flickered, a cold wind brushed past, and then silence, the heavy kind. The kind that only comes when people realize something is very, very wrong. I heard my son call out for me, a sharp, irritated shout, the same tone he used whenever he wanted something. "Mom, Mom, where are you?" There it was. Not worry, not concern, demand, possession. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I just listened. Then came my daughter-in-law's voice, shrill, annoyed, already preparing to complain. She better not be hiding. I told her to clean the baseboards today. The woman is useless unless she's given instructions. Instructions, that word alone nearly made me laugh, and then, her scream, a short, sharp, horrified gasp. "Jason, look." I didn't have to see their faces to know exactly what they were staring at. The table, the letter, and beside it, the envelope that contained something they thought I would never dare reveal. Proof, evidence, truth, the kind that flips power upside down in a single heartbeat. My son's footsteps hurried across the floor, the scrape of the chair, the rustle of paper, a long, trembling exhale. What is this?" he muttered. His voice didn't sound like his anymore. It sounded like a little boy who finally realized the monster under the bed was real. My letter wasn't emotional, it wasn't angry. It was final. Since you believe my worth is cooking and cleaning for free, I am giving you what you truly deserve. Nothing of mine, including me. But what shattered them wasn't the letter, no. It was the legal document attached to it. Because while they treated me like a burden, like an old shadow haunting their home, they had forgotten something crucial. I owned the house, not them. Not the bank, me, signed, sealed, and now transferred. The property was no longer in my name. It wasn't theirs either. I had given it to someone they could never control, never manipulate, never deceive. My granddaughter, a minor, untouchable, and protected by law. I could imagine the color draining from their faces as the truth sank in. My daughter-in-law's voice cracked first, This is a joke. She can't do this. She can't just give the house away. My son's voice followed, trembling with desperation. She has to come back. She needs to sign it back. She can't just leave. Mom. He shouted so loudly I could hear him through the walls, not out of love, out of panic, out of fear of losing the free labor, the free childcare, the effortless life I had gifted them. He didn't call me Mom because he cared. He called me Mom because he finally realized what my absence meant. But I stood outside the house, free. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt like a woman who had finally reclaimed the pieces of herself they tried so hard to break. Their footsteps came rushing toward the door, chaotic and frantic. Genesis, come back inside. We need to talk. Need. Not want? I stepped back into the shadows, letting the cool air swallow me whole. Letting their desperation ring out into the night. I didn't respond. I didn't return. I simply walked away, low, steady, peaceful, like a woman who had just buried the last remains of a life she no longer owed to anyone, and behind me, inside that house, their perfect little world began to crumble. I kept walking, one slow step at a time, down the sidewalk that had carried me through years of grocery trips, school runs, and late-night emergencies that were never truly appreciated. The wind felt different tonight, cooler, sharper, almost cleansing. My suitcase wheels rattled softly behind me, each click against the pavement sounding like a tiny piece of the past breaking away. I didn't know exactly where I was going yet. I just knew it was away from the voices that had drained me, away from the hands that only reached out when they needed something, away from the home that had felt less and less like mine with every passing year. But I also knew they wouldn't let me go easily. People don't give up their free maid, their free babysitter, their free everything. I wasn't even halfway down the street when my phone started vibrating relentlessly. My son's name flashed across the screen. I stared at it for a moment. The same name that once made my heart warm now felt like an anchor I'd finally managed to cut loose. I silenced the call. It rang again. And again, then came the messages, desperation disguised as concern. Mom, where are you? Come back. We need to fix this. You can't just leave like this. This is childish. We have to talk about the house paperwork. There it was, the truth finally slipping through. It wasn't about me. It never had been. It was about their comfort, their security, their entitlement. I kept walking. When I reached the corner of the street, I stopped, not to think, not to doubt, just to breathe. And for the first time in years, the breath didn't hurt. I found a rideshare on my phone and waited under a broken streetlight. The air smelled faintly of rain, and somewhere far away, a dog barked into the night. Everything felt strangely peaceful, as if the universe itself was exhaling with me. The car pulled up and the driver, a kind-looking older man, put my suitcase in the trunk. Airport, he asked. I nodded. I didn't need a destination. I just needed distance, real distance. But halfway through the ride, something inside me tightened. Not fear, not regret. Instinct. A quiet whisper telling me I wasn't completely done yet. There was one more thread left to cut, one more truth to deliver. Actually, I said softly, can you turn around? I need to make one stop first. When we pulled back onto my street, I could already see them. My son pacing on the front lawn, phone pressed to his ear, yelling into the night. My daughter-in-law standing stubbornly in the doorway, arms crossed, face twisted in pride and panic. They looked smaller now, not physically. Emotionally, fragile, lost, and the strangest part was, I felt nothing for them, not anger, not satisfaction. Just a final cold emptiness. I stepped out of the car and approached the house slowly. My son ran toward me immediately, breathless. "Mom, thank God, please come inside. We can fix this, okay, just. You can't leave like this. We need to talk about what you signed. That house." I raised my hand. He froze. His voice died in his throat. "I didn't come back for you," I said calmly. "I came back for the children." His face twisted, confused and guilty at the same time. My daughter-in-law scoffed loudly from the doorway. "Oh, please, they're asleep, and you're not seeing them until you undo that ridiculous house transfer. You think you can just disappear and take everything with you. You owe us." I walked past her, straight inside, straight to the kids' room, and when I opened the door and looked at their sleeping faces, my heart tightened, not in pain, but in a fierce, protective ache. These children were the only reason I stayed as long as I did. The only light in that suffocating house. I gently brushed a strand of hair from my grandson's forehead, whispered a promise he couldn't hear yet, and walked back out. My son stood in the hallway, blocking the path, eyes desperate. "Mom, please, don't do this. Don't leave us like this." I stepped around him as if he were a stranger. Because he was, at the door, I paused. Not for effect, not for drama, just for closure. "You told me I was only good for cooking and cleaning," I said quietly. "So now I'm removing myself from your menu." My daughter-in-law's face reddened with anger, but she didn't speak, not once, because she knew she had lost completely. I walked out, closed the door behind me. And this time, I didn't look back. They thought the letter on the table was the end, but the real ending was coming, slowly, quietly, and when it arrived, they wouldn't be ready. When I left the house that night for the second time, something inside me felt strangely weightless, like a tight knot had finally loosened after years of suffocating my chest. The street was quiet, the air cool, the darkness settling like a blanket over everything familiar. But I didn't feel lost. I felt awakened. Every step I took away from that house felt like reclaiming a part of myself they had slowly chipped away. I sat back into the rideshare car, and the driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror. He didn't ask what happened. Maybe he saw enough in my eyes to understand. Maybe he recognized the look of someone who had just walked away from a battlefield. Whatever the reason, he simply nodded and drove. But halfway to the airport, my phone lit up again. This time not with calls, but with pictures. My daughter-in-law had taken photos of the house, of the table, of the letter, of the signed transfer papers. She sent message after message, each one more frantic than the last. "This is illegal. You're insane. Undo this now. You can't just walk away. Genesis, you don't understand what you've done." And then the final one, short, sharp, and dripping with fear. "You ruined everything." For the first time in a long time, I smiled, not out of spite, out of clarity, because the truth was I hadn't ruined anything. I had simply stopped allowing them to ruin me. The driver asked gently, "Ma'am, do you need a moment?" I shook my head. "No, just keep going." But my thoughts drifted, not to the past, not to the hurt, but to the future, to what came next. I wasn't running away. I was stepping towards something new. My granddaughter, the only person in that house who truly loved me, deserved more than to inherit a place poisoned by entitlement. That house wasn't a home anymore, but one day, when she grew up, she would know the truth. She would know her grandmother didn't leave her with a burden. She left her with a shield, a future, a place untouched by the greed of her parents. By the time we reached a small hotel near the airport, my phone had stopped buzzing. Silence again, a different kind, heavy, uncertain waiting. I checked in, took a warm shower, and sat by the window watching planes rise into the night sky like silver arrows. Freedom. It felt nothing like I imagined. It felt better. The next morning, I woke up to a message from an unknown number. Not my son, not her, someone else. My hands trembled, not from fear, but anticipation. As I opened it, it was a single sentence. "They called the police on you." I almost laughed. Of course they did. When threatened, people like them don't apologize. They attack, they twist, they manipulate. They weaponize every system they can reach. But they didn't know the truth. I hadn't broken a law. I hadn't abandoned anything. I had simply executed a plan years in the making, one they never imagined I'd have the strength or intelligence to pull off. I decided to leave the hotel and head to the small cafe across the street. It was quiet, warm, filled with the smell of fresh pastries. I ordered a coffee, sat down, and watched the sunrise paint the sky gold. And that's when the door opened. A familiar silhouette stepped inside. My breath caught, not in fear, but in disbelief. It wasn't my son, not my daughter-in-law, not the police. It was the one person I truly trusted, the only one who ever listened, my brother. The man who had seen them use me for years. The man who had been begging me to leave long before I ever found the courage to do it. He sat across from me, eyes soft, voice gentle. "You ready to come home?" That word, home, hit something deep inside me. Because for years I thought home was a place, a roof, a familiar scent. But now I knew home was safety, home was respect. Home was choosing myself. I nodded slowly. Yes, I'm ready. He reached for my suitcase and I let him take it. For the first time in years, someone was helping me, not using me. The relief was so overwhelming I almost cried right there in the cafe. As we walked out together, he said quietly, "You know they're not done, right? They're going to fight this." I looked out at the rising sun, my voice steady, unwavering. Let them fight. Because they had no idea what was coming next, and the next move was mine. My brother drove while I sat quietly, watching the city slip past my window like a fading memory. Every building, every streetlight, every familiar corner felt distant now, like pieces from a life I had already walked out of. I wasn't afraid anymore, not of them, not of what they would try next. I had faced the worst version of my own child, and survived it. Everything after that felt strangely simple. We reached his home, a warm little house tucked behind a row of maple trees. The moment I stepped inside, something inside me cracked open, not from pain but from relief. The air smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread. A soft blanket lay folded on the couch. The kitchen light was warm and gentle, nothing like the cold white glare my daughter-in-law preferred. I felt myself breathe. Truly breathe, for the first time in years. My brother watched me closely, his eyes softening. "You're safe here, Genesis. No one will touch you." Safe. It was almost an unfamiliar word. But safety doesn't stop the past from knocking. And it didn't take long. That afternoon, as I sat in the living room wrapped in a blanket, my brother set a cup of tea beside me. At that exact moment, the doorbell rang. Sharp, fast, aggressive. A ring that didn't ask permission. A ring that demanded something. My brother stiffened, jaw tightening. "Stay here," he murmured, but I already knew who it was before he opened the door. I recognized the energy, the frantic, entitled desperation that arrives when smug people realize the power they thought they owned was never theirs to begin with. My son's voice exploded from the doorway before I could even see his face. "Where is she, Mom? You can't do this. You can't just change everything and run away." His voice wasn't angry, it was terrified, and that told me everything I needed to know. I stood slowly and walked toward the entryway. When I appeared behind my brother, my son's eyes widened in shock. He looked disheveled, panicked, sweat on his forehead as if he had been running. Not from love, not from worry, from consequences. "Mom," he said, breathless. "Please, please come home. We'll talk. We can fix this. Just come with me." I stared at him with a calm he couldn't understand. "You don't want me home. You want control back." His mouth opened, then closed. He had no words because he knew I was right. And then she stepped into view, my daughter-in-law, arms crossed tightly, face twisted in an expression half anger, half fear. "Genesis, this is ridiculous. You're acting like a child who ran away. You need to undo the transfer. The house is ours, no." I said quietly, "It never was." Her face flushed with rage. "We took care of you. We gave you a home." I stepped forward, my voice steady, cutting. "You didn't give me a home. I gave you one. You didn't take care of me. I took care of you, every meal, every chore, every child's tear, every long night when you two were out enjoying a life built on the hands you called useless." She scoffed. "Oh, please, don't act like a saint. You're overreacting." My brother spoke then, stepping to my side. His voice was low, dangerous. "She's not going back with you. And if you raise your voice at her again, you'll step off my property immediately." My son looked at him, then at me, eyes wide with something close to panic. "Mom, we're being evicted. Do you understand? You put the house in a minor's name. We can't do anything. You ruined us. Ruined them." That word again. I looked straight into his eyes. "I didn't ruin you. I protected myself. And if it ruins the life you built on using me, then that says everything about the life you were living." His shoulders sagged as if someone had taken the strength out of him. He looked small, like the little boy I once raised, like the man I never thought he'd become. Then he whispered a sentence I never expected from him. "We have nowhere to go." And for a moment, just a moment, my heart faltered. I remembered his first steps, his first day of school, his laughter when he was still pure. But then I remembered the last years, the insults, the orders, the entitlement, the cruelty. "It's time." I said softly, "You learn how to stand on your own feet without me carrying the weight." My daughter-in-law grabbed his arm. "We're leaving. She'll regret this." "No," I said, stepping back into the doorway. "You'll regret what you did. And one day your children will learn the truth too, that you drove away the only person who ever put them first." That hit her harder than anything. I saw it in her eyes. She dragged my son toward the car, fury radiating off her. My son looked back one last time, as if waiting for me to stop him, to call him, to say he could come home. But I didn't. For once in my life, I chose myself. They drove away fast, their taillights disappearing into the dusk like the end of a story. Except it wasn't the end, not for me. When I stepped back inside, my brother placed a warm hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. I nodded, but the truth was deeper. I didn't just do the right thing. I reclaimed my life, and that night, as I lay in the quiet warmth of my brother's home, something settled deep inside me. A peace I hadn't felt in decades, a certainty that I would never again be the woman who let people walk over her. My name is Genesis, and this was my beginning.